May the words of my mouth and the meditation of all our hearts be acceptable unto thee, O Lord, our rock and our salvation. Amen. Please be seated. My family and I just drove back from Tennessee. 17 and a half hours culminating in an afternoon in traffic on I-35 yesterday afternoon. Deep breaths. During that time, I got to read an interview with the author of a book called The Anxious Generation. Anybody read that? Jonathan Haidt? Yeah? All right, Carrie, we'll have to talk, right? Because I found it really interesting. It's about the rise of anxiety and mental health issues with youth from the year 2010 and on. And the author correlates this mental health pandemic to the proliferation of social media and the smartphone childhoods. The antidote to this pandemic is more in-person interactions, less time with screens, and just generally slowing down. In short, the antidote to anxiety is Advent. Advent has always been a season meant to help us, followers of Christ, slow down and be more present with ourselves, our communities, and more present with God. In the beginning, Advent mirrored Lent. It was actually 6 weeks long. It went from November 11th to December 25th. It was called St. Martin's Lent. And the original Advent wreaths had 6 candle holders, and they were all purple. Advent was initially meant to mirror Lent, to be a season of penitence. And then, somewhere around the 9th century, Pope Nicholas said, we're not doing this 6 weeks of Lent all over again. We're going to cut it down to 4 weeks, and we're going to focus on anticipation and preparation, not penitence. And as you will see from the readings for the next 4 weeks, we're anticipating not only the first coming of Jesus Christ at Christmas, but the second coming of Jesus Christ at the end of the age. We in the Episcopal Church took things even further, right? And we changed the color from purple to blue. Particularly, this color is called Sarum blue, and it comes from the Salisbury Cathedral in England. And we've chose this because blue is supposed to represent hope. Purple is penitence, blue is hope. And so as we walk through these next 4 weeks, through hope and faith and joy, we come to the 4th Sunday of Advent, which is the candle of love. It's the candle where we always hear the story of Mary. Mary and Elizabeth, great with child, and the choir will chant the Magnificat on that day. And so, like Mary, at the end of her pregnancy, we are reminded that we can't rush Christmas. We can't hurry Jesus out of the womb. We can't rush Christ, right? So Advent moves at a gestational pace, slowly nurturing life and hope into being. And our Jeremiah and Luke readings today testify, bless you, to the patience and the faith needed to appreciate this pace. Our Jeremiah reading, right, is talking about the coming of the Messiah, the first appearance of Jesus Christ. And Jeremiah speaks in terms of stumps and branches. In Jeremiah's time, the family tree of King David, the Jewish monarchy, would come to an end. In 586 BC, the Babylonians would destroy King Solomon's temple and carry many of the Jewish people off into exile. Jeremiah will then predict that from that stump, the stump of Jesse, he calls it, David's father, a new leader would arise. A branch shall spring forth for David, is what our Jeremiah reading said today. Of course, it'll take that stump 500 years of dormancy before it sends up that shoot. And even then, it's a process of incremental growth for a sapling. It took Jesus 30 years before he grew strong enough to share the gospel of good news with people in public. We can't rush God, but we can be present to creative growth. We can be present to the feeling of anticipation of the fruits that are to come. Jesus will say the same about the second coming of Christ. In the gospel reading today, in that parable of the fig tree, right? We are to wait and to watch for the signs of budding. A couple weeks ago, we heard Mark's version of this little apocalypse. And as we move from one liturgical year to the other, we move from Mark into Luke. So for the next year, we're going to be hearing a lot more from Luke. And in Luke's little apocalypse, we hear about all these disastrous portents in the heavens and on earth. And we are to prepare ourselves for the Son of Man who is coming in a cloud with power and great glory. These portents could still be thousands of years away. Or they could be happening right now. Or they could happen in every generation. The point isn't that when Jesus will return, but that it's going to come at an unexpected time. And our best course of action is to wait, to prepare our hearts, to look with anticipation to the coming of the fruits of the fig tree putting out its blossoms and its food. We are to keep our eyes on Christ and attentive to our relationship with God and our neighbors. We can't rush the second coming any more than we can the first. But we can slow down. We can be present with Christ and with one another in prayer and worship, fellowship, and service. And so here we are, celebrating Advent at St. Mark's, and we're looking to slow things down, to pay more attention to our spiritual lives. The most obvious change is that we're doing this right one service for the next 3 weeks. If you notice, this service has more commas than periods. The idea is that we have to keep our attention a little bit longer, to hold this service a little bit closer, to pull us deeper into this wonderful miracle of sacrament. But we're doing other things, right? We've got these Advent devotionals. We're not emailing them out. We're giving to you in hard copy. You know, up at the early childhood building, they're using this same curriculum. They made non-pizzas today, right? Along with the food and the hope that the hungry bellies see in food, right? So we're doing these Advent curriculums. We're doing these take-home family activities where we're cooking meals together. In a similar vein, we're moving from the virtual to the incarnational and other aspects of our lives. For music, for instance, right? Instead of putting on a Christmas playlist on iTunes or Spotify, I invite you all to come out to Lessons and Carols. It's December 11th at 7 p.m. It's live music, y'all. Live music in our tradition. There is candles, there are prayers, there is amazing hymns and music from around the world. Move from the virtual to the incarnational. If you dare, take off your shoes. So I'm standing in solidarity with Mother Rachel, who celebrates most Sundays here, but there is a history behind this, a scriptural history, right? God tells Moses to take off his shoes. You're approaching holy earth, right? To ground yourself incarnationally in your bodies in this place. You don't have to, right? I get that, right? But if you want to, I encourage you sometime in the next 4 weeks, give a barefoot worship service a try. Invite you to spend some more time doing other things in person, right? So instead of sending text or IMing or DMing, give somebody a call. come to morning prayer in person. Sorry, we turned those pews around so that the morning prayer folks could look at the altar and celebrate. Yeah, poor Sarah and Micah are trying to spin around looking at from the back. Right, so we're going to do morning prayer. If you want to be with creation, y'all, we've got this wonderful trail crew that's out here on Tuesdays and Saturdays. Go and celebrate with creation. I invite you to write a few letters. It's interesting, my brother-in-law works in educational software for IXL and for Renaissance Software. And now there's this movement for groups to go back to in-person and handwriting curriculum. Right? So get ahead of the curve as the pendulum swings back. Write a letter. If you don't know who to write a letter to, I joked at the 8 o'clock service, write a letter to Mother Rachel. Right? She's being ordained to the priesthood. Write her a congratulations letter. This is like 8 years in the making. Write a letter to a friend. Write a letter to someone on our prayer list. Join in that incarnational, tangible way of connecting to God and your neighbor. Advent is a gift to our frayed and weary nerves. So slow down. Put down your screens and join us for some in-person connections with God and one another. You won't be disappointed by this slower pace of life. And by the time Advent comes along and we're finished, the fruits of your labor will be a closer walk with Christ, a deeper appreciation of Christmas, and a whole lot less anxiety in this generation. Amen.